George of the jungle, strong as he can be.
Want to know what the best fix and flip loan is on the market these days? That's what we're going to be discussing in thecreditjungle.com. This is George Anderson. Thanks for joining. And you know, as much as everybody wants to be a real estate investor, it doesn't take too much to figure out that one bad decision going into it can really kind of leave some painful after effects. I learned a long time ago that the only thing that you can control when you're going into an investment property is what you can pay for it. You can't control how much it's going to cost to fix up. You don't know how long it's going to take to sell it, and you don't know what you're going to get for it when you do sell it. But what if there was a cheaper way to get the financing for that property if you're not paying cash? So let's talk about this a little bit today. And now I realize that there are a lot of different options and ways to skin the cat on this, but I'm going to be talking about this option A here, and maybe I'm better from doing it on this side. But typically an investor is going to want about 10% down, and then the closing costs on this are going to be about 3%. It's typically 2% of the loan amount, and then plus your title fees, and if there's an appraisal or something else involved in that. But you're going to have some costs on that, and then you're looking at an interest rate that is, 8% to 10%. It's going to vary a little bit from the investors, and that's going to leave you with a payment. If you have $170,000 or $170 a month, and we're using a $300,000 purchase price home, that's going to be a payment of about $2,150. And let's assume that let's just be conservative and say that this is a 6-month project from the time that you acquire it to the time that you sell it. Well, your carrying costs, you're going to have 6 payments, or about $13,000 in payments, and about $39,000 in acquisition cost. That means that that property, from the time that you've spent it to buy your $30,000 on there, you're still going to owe pretty close to $270, what you've got minus your down payment on it, and you're going to have $52,000 into it. So you've got to hope that you've got a pretty healthy rate of return on it. And I just want to say from personal experience, I work with a lot of private lenders and investors that will do this type of financing, as well as some institutional ones. And frankly, for a lot of people that are lending the money, what they're doing is they're just kind of hoping that it ends up being a cheap way for them to acquire a property that you found, because the terms on these loans, they're normally due in 12 months. So if you haven't done what you're going to do and get your profit out of it, get your contractors there, get the work completed and everything else, they're perfectly fine taking the property back after you've made the improvements on it. So anyway, this is the traditional ways to go and get outside financing on it. Now, the other option here, option B, and I'm going to do a follow-up video on this one, and you'll have to look for this one inside the YouTube channel, and you'll have to search contract for deed. Contract for deed. There's a reason that I'm going to talk about this other one, because this is an approach that I've used personally. In fact, my daughter and my son-in-law have actually done this on 3 properties. 2 of them they acquired with no money down. No money down. Now there's a whole lot of different stuff that goes into this process, so I'm just going to kind of go over this a little bit at the 10,000 foot level. But let's just say we have a seller here who owes about $280,000. And this is just going to be typical of what you might find with somebody who has a property that's in distress. There may not be a lot of equity. And because there's not a lot of equity, they're a little bit more willing to negotiate to try to figure out how to get them out of it and fix whatever they need to. Let's just say that maybe that seller is behind on their payments, maybe they've got a little bit of equity or something like that, but they're willing to just get something done quickly so that you can get in there, and they're not really waiting for you to get your loan or whatever else might go on, and appraisals and things that can happen with that. You can negotiate a seller finance contract. And I'm going to be doing several videos down the road with an attorney friend of mine, Jax Petty, that we've had on other videos. And he's going to be explaining some of the legal parts of this contract for deed transaction. But these transactions are actually spelled out in the underwriting guidelines for Fannie Mae, for Freddie Mac, for FHA, for VA, for USDA. This is not something new, but again, this is something that a lot of people don't know about. But let's just say that between making up some of the seller's back payments, maybe he had a half a dozen payments that he was behind, maybe he was in a forbearance or something like that, and then he's got a little bit of equity, well, you're just going to go and say, look, we're going to go and create a contract where I'm going to cash out most of your equity. I'm going to take over the payment on your loan, and then I'm going to go in with my money and fix up the house. And then when I sell the house, then you'll get the balance of whatever little sliver of equity they might have. Maybe there's $5,000 or $10,000 at that point. You'll get your profit, but the benefits of that is that instead of a down payment based on the purchase price, you're going to determine what the seller's equity is, and then make the seller an offer based on what they need to get them caught up to be able to relocate, to get out of the house. You want to have the house vacant if you're going to go in and do some rehabilitation on it. What are your closing costs on a seller finance loan? Well, you're going to have maybe $1,000 of closing costs, maybe just at the title company, and that's really about it. Very, very minimal on the costs here. And then what's the interest rate on your loan? Well, what's the interest rate on the seller's loan? Most people out there have got a very good interest rate on that, so let's just say that the seller has a 4% interest rate. So now, remember the old term, other people's money? Well, OPM in this scenario actually refers to other people's mortgages, okay? So you're going to be using other people's mortgages to leverage your ability to get financing on a fix and flip property. So instead of having a payment of $2,150 a month, you're going to have a payment that's $1,531. So you're looking at there an easy $600 a month savings on your carrying cost plus no closing costs. Your upfront cash here, maybe $15,000, $9,200 in payments. 6 months down the road, your money into the property, just your acquisition and your carrying costs. That's all we're talking about here is acquisition and carrying costs. You're at about $24,000 here versus $52,000 here. Obviously, a lot of things you could do that you could put into the property with that $28,000 that you saved, plus you don't have a mortgage in your name. The mortgage is still in the seller's name. So this is a very, I don't want to say that it's unique. There's a lot of people that know how to do this, but it's the way that you structure the contract and the way that you crunch the numbers to propose this to the seller. But you can actually have the seller participate in some of your gain if you wanted to do that. And I've had that with other people that have gone in and negotiated these and say, look, let me get into the property and start doing the stuff that needs to be done. And you can have some sort of a participation agreement where they will get a percentage of what's being done. Plus, if they were behind on their mortgage, the seller now has their mortgage completely caught up. The payments are going to be made on time because you're going to honor your contract and you're going to make those payments on time. And you've made it a very simple way for you to get into the property, very easy way for the seller to get out of the property. And at the end of the day, if you can create a win-win and minimize your financing costs and your carrying costs on a fix and flip property, you don't need as big of margins and you're going to come out just great. So hopefully that's valuable information to you. Thanks for coming into thecreditjungle.com today. This is George Anderson. Remember, you can push button, get mortgage professional, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. Have a great day.